Hi-ho, Dave the Lurker here in beautiful downtown Denellen, Florida. It's sunny, 85 degrees, and the humidity level is light rain, which is totally a thing you can get used to. I've had my Blazer EV for 3 months now, and I thought I'd do a review. This is the RS rear-wheel drive version, and it's a beautiful car and drives and rides great. So why do I hate it? Well, they all drive great in this segment. It's the little things that make me glad I got the shortest lease possible instead of buying it. I was on the fence between this and the Lyric and the EV6 and Ioniq 5, and now I have regrets. Some cars unlock by putting your hand behind the handle and then lock when you push the button. This just has the one button and it toggles the lock state. Pop quiz, hotshot. Is it locked or unlocked? Wrong. Schrodinger's lock is neither locked nor unlocked until a tweaker pulls the handle and steals your Aldi's quarter. So I have to pull the key fob out of my pocket and push the button like a caveman. Speaking of useless features, if you have the key fob in your pocket and you stand behind the tailgate, it opens automatically. I must walk really slow because when I walk around the car, there's a 50-50 chance the tailgate opens. The last time I barely caught it before it crashed into the garage door. So I turned it off in the settings instead of maximum height, and now the close button also doesn't work. So I guess that's two more useless features. This thing has more lights per square inch on the front than a bull hauler with two alternators. But no cornering lights? Come on, GM, you invented cornering lamps, and this isn't a Chevy Spark. Wondering about the frunk? No front motor, should be huge. All we really need is room enough for the charger cord and a tire kit. If I ever have to untetris luggage for 5 on the side of the interstate to get the tire plugs, get your cameras out. You're going to see the greatest Yosemite Sam impression you've ever seen. Let's take a look at the interior. Look at that headrest. If you are tall or have stumpy legs and the torso of an NBA star, you'll be riding around with your chin sitting on your collarbone. I assume that's some sort of federal anti-whiplash protection combined with GM's austerity program to create something unusual. I've run into this before, and usually I flip the headrests around backwards, but this one has clips buried way down in the seat, and you have to get some dental picks and try to pull them out without scratching the leather. It's like a game of operation. Once you do, it feels like it's leaned way backwards, probably dangerously so. If I thought I'd be keeping this after the lease, I'd try straightening the posts, but that's not going to happen. It has memory seats, but you can't just press them once. You have to hold the button down. Mrs. Lurker sits way close to the steering wheel, while I'm lower and further back. Sometimes she forgets to put the seat down when she gets out of there. I have to gently remind her. It's like talking to a wall, am I right, fellas? Sometimes she forgets, and then I forget to look and sit down with the seat up. Push the button to move back, and sometimes, instead of going back, it goes forward, trying to crush me against the steering wheel. I can see why they make you hold the button down. The back seat has a lot of legroom, A+, but no one who sits back there ever mentions it. They always say, what the heck did I just sit on? If you're the sort of person that takes the kids' car seats in and out all the time, you'll love this. But that's not me. You're probably wondering about the cable across the back seat. I'll get to that. There's no 110 outlet. I guess that's my fault for not asking. Every high-end car I've had has had one. I just assumed that'd be standard. If I'd gone Korean, I'd have 2 different ways to pull AC out. Just plug an inverter in? Well, there's only one 12-volt power accessory outlet, and it's in the console. I can imagine what happened. Half the people wanted it in the dash, half the people wanted it in the cargo area, so they compromised and put it in the console where nobody wanted it. This particular power outlet is only on when the car is on, so when I go shopping, I leave the Blazer running most of the time. Sun visor extension? Well, no. I like the idea of a regen paddle on the steering wheel. I liked it on my Cadillac ELR, but it was a little too weak. The problem is it's binary, either on or off. It needs to be analog or at least a 2-stage switch. At around 35 or 40, it can really slam you against the seatbelts. I think maybe they could fix it by ramping up a little slower, but overall I'm glad I have it. I asked Mrs. Lurker what her biggest problem is. She says the door is very heavy and often hits her in the legs when she gets in and out. I took a look, and if you open the door to the first detent, the spot where the door will stick and not close on you, it takes about 24 inches. If you have tight parking spots, you might not be able to get to that spot. By comparison, my Roadmaster only needs about 18 inches. Granted, there's not a lot of space to get out, but it's enough to stand there and gather up your belongings without the door hitting you in the back of the legs. Her other problem is the wireless phone charger doesn't work for her. It works great for me. She has the same Samsung phone, but in a smaller size, and an iPhone, and both do the same thing. They charge for a few minutes and then throw up an error message. I like the vents. It reminds me of the Astroflow vents in my Chevelle. You can point them anywhere, and if you twist them clockwise, you turn them on, and counterclockwise, you turn off. Now, maybe that's a standard I'm not aware of, but as someone who's been doing lefty-loosey to turn on faucets for 5 decades, I haven't twisted these the right direction a single time. We got a free upgrade to Special Options Z13. That's the Rainbow Sparkle Glitter windshield coating. Most of the time it's invisible, but when the sun hits it just right, it's amazing. I know it just looks like a haze on the camera, but it's billions of prismatic dots. Maybe run your fingernails across the windshield before you leave the dealer to see if you got it too. How do you like your music? I like MP3s. I have a thumb drive, so I can't close the front console. Hope you have your OCD under control. I try real hard not to think about it. A lot. Watch as I select some music. I feel like shouting at the devil today with Motley Crue. Alright, looks good. Got my songs. Let's pick one. Helter Skelter. Well, that's not the Beatles. And that's not the album either. That's the wrong album, and that's the wrong album, and that's the wrong album. So it's playing the right songs, but it's got the wrong MP3 tags displayed. Let's turn it off and see if it remembers. Yep, there it is. Helter Skelter. It remembered my song. That'll save a lot of time. Dope. It didn't remember the album, so I gotta reset everything. And there's no connection between the radio volume and the speed. 10 back in the 90s had that. This is the top of the line Blazer with premium sound, and at every red light I have to turn the volume down with my fingers like it's 1989. There are smart buttons for things that appear and disappear based on context. That seems like a good idea, but the other day, just as I pressed the garage door, it changed to the button to turn off the car. I kind of need the buttons to stay in one place when I push them. Reminds me when I first learned to code, I wrote an app where the close button would run away from the mouse. Are you pranking me, General Motors? Maybe half the time when I push a button it turns orange but nothing happens. I'm guessing my hand shakes and it registers as a drag and not a click, but that's not something I can really fix. And this screen is hot. Not too hot to touch, but you wouldn't want to leave your finger on it. That can't be good for the electronics. I knew this didn't have Android Auto, and some of the reviews said don't worry, you can install Waze natively. Yes, you can, but it's not nearly as useful. It's a second-class citizen, and it doesn't work the same as it does on your phone. I like to have my map over here so I can see the streets. I have turn-by-turn navigation here and also in the HUD. Very nice. But it's also in the instrument cluster. That's about as useful as my first vasectomy. The problem with it is that's where the music info would go. I have no music info. I can do a split screen with the map, but that makes the map smaller. There doesn't seem to be a way to change the map to near and the music to far away, which is annoying, as I like to let my son use the MP3 controls. I like to play a game with him where he can use the skip button, but not twice in a row. He has to be careful or he'll end up listening to Peaches and Herb. And how about this screen? Once you get there, you can't get out. I did eventually figure out this is supposed to be a slider, and the white bar at the bottom is a grab handle. Two problems. One, I didn't slide it open. I opened it with the bell icon, so it's not at all obvious. Two, the grab handle is like 4 pixels wide and it's impossible to grab it while you're driving. You might as well pull over and put it in park, which also clears it. I was having a problem with the camera turning off when I was backing out of the garage. I figured that one out though. I was resting my hand on top of the screen and pushed the garage door button with my thumb. And I accidentally brushed the power button on top of the screen. So that one's kind of on me. But why is there a power button where you would rest your hand? Why is there a power button at all? Thought maybe you could hold it down to reset if you got the screen stuck, but no, that doesn't seem to work. There are several skins for the instrument cluster, but only this one has the percentage charge. And I have day and date, which I've never once needed, but I don't have things I want to see. One of my most important features is the heads-up display. That's why I picked this over the Lyric. I love being able to see the speed limit right there. However, it doesn't seem to be very reliable. The first few weeks it was blank. There's a lot of tips and tricks online, but nothing worked. Just had to wait. It is still sometimes blank or wildly inaccurate. It's frustrating when I look over and Waze knows the speed limit, but Blazer does not. Imagine my surprise when I was driving it home from the dealer, put on my sunglasses. The HUD was completely invisible. You can kind of see it here. If you turn the sunglasses perpendicular, you can see the HUD as bright as can be. But in the normal position, it flickers between invisible and very dim as you move your head around. So you can drive around with your head on your right shoulder, or you can throw your sunglasses away and buy some dollar store specials. And I get the red collision alert at least once every time I drive it. It seems overly sensitive, but at least it hasn't slammed on the brakes on me. A couple times I thought it did, but thinking about it, it was just the cruise control thinking there was something in my lane, which is a different problem. The collision alert doesn't really bother me. Better safe than sorry, I guess. But Mrs. Lurker, I think, is looking through the steering wheel, and she says it blocks almost her whole field of view. I took this to the drive-in last week. For the first time, I'd get to watch the double feature in air-conditioned comfort. The guy at the gate gave me the stink eye and said it's not going to make that noise the whole time, is it? I explained the pedestrian alert would shut off when I put it in park. But he was right to be concerned. This thing is loud. Sitting at my desk, I can hear my wife in the street when she drops below 20 and makes the turn into the driveway. All these lists of EV advantages have silence on the list. They need to stop. I have two gasolinas that I can't hear pull in the driveway. A couple of things. There's no key. You can't just leave the car on. You can leave it on for an hour, but you can't leave it on for 4 hours or 8 hours. This is Florida. At some point, the electricity will be out and I'm going to have to sleep in the car. And I don't want to press the button every hour. And it really needs a dog mode where the AC runs indefinitely, but you can't drive it away. Here's a tip. If you see one of these in a parking lot on a hot day, you can probably throw your spark plug through the window and take it for a test drive. The second problem was the instrument dimmer. It's not really a dimmer, more of a brightener. Next time I'll take some towels to cover things up. You should always know where your towel is. Also, it's great you can shut the headlights off, but they default back to on if the car shuts off, which it probably will. Okay, this is a problem, but maybe all cars do this, so maybe it's not a fair complaint. The defroster blows a little even when it's set to floor or panel. Doesn't seem like a problem, but here in Florida it meant the windshield fogged up and I had to run the wipers during the movie. So as far as the drive-in is concerned, as long as you bring blankets or towels to cover up the dashboard, you'll love it. Probably there's some workaround so you don't have to hit the button every hour. Leave a comment if you know what it is. Let's talk charging. If you have 350 kilowatt chargers on your route, you should be happy with the charging speed. In theory, you can plug in, go eat lunch, and come back fully charged. But you know what they say about the difference between theory and practice. In theory, they're the same. In practice, gang after glay. I've made 4 attempts at this, and I'm 0 for 4 at pulling off this miracle. It usually shuts off at some point in the process, and I have to unplug and restart the charging. The 150 and 180 chargers near me have stayed connected. Those speeds sound perfect since the rear-wheel drive is rated for 190 kilowatt peak charging speed. But the maximum rate of a charger is not the power rating, that's marketing talk. There's some component in there that has a maximum current. And here's a little something I remember from my electrical engineering days. It's the pi formula. Power is equal to the current times the voltage. So the power the charger can deliver depends on your battery voltage. If you have one of the Korean cars, you have a lot of voltage and you'll get a lot of power. GM's Ultium has the lowest of any car I was considering. That's why I got the rear-wheel version with its bigger battery. It's not just the range, it affects the charging speed. My experience has been that I get around 70-75% of the power the charger is rated at. Note, it's not what the car is rated, it's what the charger is rated. So at a 150 charger, I charge at around 110 at best. Now that's not pull your hair out slow, but if you're thinking my car is rated for 190 and I guess I can use 150, then you're going to be frustrated when you get 110 and it goes down from there. Let's talk about what I like. Don't worry, I'll be quick. I like the regen paddle despite its problems, and it gives easy access to the auto hold. I love the Galaxy gray color. My guess is it's the same gray base coat as on my Bolt, but they've added some purple pearl in the clear coat. When the light hits it just right, it's beautiful. I love the rear view camera. This is the first one I've had. Now first, every time I looked at it, my eyes were focused for distance and I couldn't see a thing. I thought I was having a stroke. But after a few days, my brain adjusted and I really like it. I think the camera could be mounted higher, but it looks like they had a reason for doing it the way they did, so I'm not going to complain about it. Legroom and headroom is great, even with the sunroof. It really is a nice sized car. I really liked it if there's a passenger, you can unnerf the screen. I know this has been a lot of complaining, but this isn't even the full list. There's more. Last week the left turn signal didn't work. It was blinking double speed and I got an error message on the dash. I was getting my camera out to take a pic and the light changed and it hasn't happened since. Now that is more than annoyance, that is safety. But as a former GM mechanic, I can promise you, unless you're super tight with your service writer, no one's going to look at that. 3 times now the parking brake has slammed on when I was backing up. No idea what's going on there. Can you imagine what this thing was like before they had the stop sale and fixed all the software bugs? This has the auto update ability, so maybe they'll fix some of these, but I doubt it. And I see in the news GM is laying off software developers by the hundreds. I add something new to this list every week, so my money is on this list getting longer, not shorter. So in conclusion, get the EV6 or Ioniq 5. They are essentially the same car, so just pick whichever one jumps out at you. I hear the 2025s have some nice improvements. Or check under your couch cushions for some NFTs to sell and step up to the Lyric. It's the same car as the Blazer, but they've managed to avoid a number of my annoyances. Just don't get a Blazer. I didn't test drive the Equinox because the charging is even slower than this, but I have to assume it has a lot of the same problems. Thanks for listening to me complain. I'll admit none of these are serious problems. It's just the sheer number of them that has pushed me over the edge and made me get off the couch and make a video. With 23 months left on the lease, I'm crossing off the days. I really am a Chevy guy, so I'll give them a second chance when the time comes. Maybe they'll have it all fixed by then, or maybe there'll be some real competition from another brand. Please leave a comment if you have a workaround for some of these or your own complaints. And leave a like so we can share my love. This is Dave the Lurker, returning you to your regularly scheduled programming.